Thank you, and thank you to everyone for coming to our presentation. So before we get started, we just wanted to introduce ourselves and explain how we're connected to YouthMappers. So I first found out about YouthMappers when I was in college as an undergraduate studying geography at Vassar College in New York, and I founded and led a YouthMappers chapter there for 2 years, and for the past 4 years I've been at the USAID Geo Center, working as a geospatial analyst and supporting the management of YouthMappers, which is primarily funded by USAID.
Hi everyone, I'm Dara. Oh, that's loud. So currently I work at Appalachian State University, but I formerly was the communications specialist for YouthMappers, and I like to say I was a part of the co-pilot of YouthMappers when I was in high school. And through my interactions with YouthMappers now, unofficially, I consider myself a YouthMappers cheerleader. So today we are going to be introducing YouthMappers and its role in the open mapping community, and then we'll talk more about the community building aspect, building mappers, and Adele is going to share some excellent case studies when talking about the open mapping community, and then bringing in the open geospatial ecosystem and the tools that YouthMappers are using, and finally we'll speak to some lived experiences and what you can do from the open geospatial community to build YouthMappers and to build students. Our talk is, the foundation of our talk is on a chapter that we have been working on for the last year. The book chapter is titled Open Movements, Recognizing Challenges and Building Connections. And we are the only chapter within this open movement, open data book about GIS. So we've been working on that together with our co-author Maria Fernanda, who unfortunately can't be here with us. But that is what our talk is rooted in. And now I'll pass it to Adele.
Yeah, thanks, Dara. So first of all, an introduction to YouthMappers. As you may know, our motto is we don't just build maps, we build mappers. And so we decided to structure our presentation around this motto. I'm going to be talking about the building maps part, and Dara will be talking about the building mappers part, because we see both as very critical to creating the open geospatial data, but also ensuring that we are supporting the professional development and learning of these students who are creating the data. So YouthMappers, if you are unfamiliar, is a global network of student-led mapping clubs. And the network started in 2015 and has since expanded to over 420 YouthMappers chapters at universities in 81 countries. This map is a little out of date, but just to give you the statistics, there are 60 chapters in the Latin America region, and 21, maybe 22 by now, are in Brazil. I also just wanted to ask anyone in the room who is a YouthMapper, can you raise your hand? Okay, awesome, and faculty advisors, thank you. Yeah, so we have students here, YouthMapper students from Ecuador, Brazil, and Colombia. Any other countries? Okay, yeah, so we are here as kind of behind-the-scenes support for YouthMappers, making sure that students at these chapters are supported in the work that they do. So YouthMappers can be understood as three distinct but related categories. Since I'm talking more about the maps, I'm going to talk about mapping projects, and Dara will cover training and fellowships as part of the building mappers part. So mapping projects can take any form. Students are the leaders of the YouthMappers chapters, and they decide what they want to work on. Some examples of what they work on are student-led projects. So the students may identify a development or humanitarian challenge in their own community and develop mapping solutions to address that challenge. And in addition to that, students contribute to projects led by development, and humanitarian partners, such as the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and then finally, the last part, which is something that I work on in my job, is connecting YouthMappers chapters with the USAID offices that are located in the chapters countries, as well as USAID programs that are interested in working with youth or need geospatial data to improve their programming. So I think you can see from this list that it's really a broad range of projects, and at all of these different levels, we really emphasize collaboration, long-term partnership building with whatever actors the students wish to engage with. So I'm going to share a few examples globally and then including Latin America of YouthMappers engaging with different types of geospatial projects. So the first that I wanted to highlight is YouthMappers working to improve crop forecasts. This project took place in Tanzania, and it was initiated by a collaboration between USAID and the US Department of Agriculture. And the idea behind this project was to create ground truth crop identification data that could feed into machine learning algorithms to support food security. And we know that machine learning algorithms for countries in the global south are not as accurate as in the global north. And so this was part of an effort to create some of that data to inform the machine learning models. The students from, I believe, 6 different Tanzanian YouthMappers chapters gathered for a centralized training, and then were funded to go out into different regions in Tanzania and collect the data. This is an example featuring our co-author for the book chapter that we're working on, and she is engaging with people who are living in the Gulf of Urabá in Colombia to map flood zones and help with coastal resilience. And you can see that she's engaging in a community mapping workshop where they are discussing priorities and data together. With regard to health mapping, this is a project in Nigeria that was in support of the Power Africa initiative, which seeks to electrify 10,000 health facilities in sub-Saharan Africa. And in this case, USAID was given a data set of where healthcare facilities were located and their electrification status, and USAID worked with YouthMappers chapters in Nigeria, and the students were trained on surveying techniques, and then they were funded to go out and collect the data. And in many cases, the existing data set was incomplete or just simply wrong. I know there were instances of students going to a specific point in the data set and realizing it was just an empty field and there was no healthcare facility there. And so you can see how this type of ground truth data can help to help contribute to real development work to improve healthcare access. And then lastly, wanted to highlight YouthMappers strengthening disaster response. YouthMappers were a key group in providing remote mapping support after the Turkey and Syria earthquakes. And I wanted to highlight a more regionally specific project, which was mapping response following Hurricane Otis in Mexico. And this was fully organized by Mexican YouthMappers chapters, and they accomplished this mapping via virtual mapathons. Yep, so now I'll pass it back to Dara.
Thanks, Adele. So now we're going to be speaking more to how YouthMappers has evolved from a university network to truly a movement of students utilizing mapping tools to have their voice heard, and they're also able to place themselves on the map how they want to be represented. And I think that has largely been due to the structure of YouthMappers encouraging peer-to-peer peer-to-peer mentorship and also encouraging open access. So with these 3 pillars, Adele spoke about the mapping projects, and now I'll focus on the training and fellowships. So with the trainings, the YouthMappers Academy is an online module for students to build their skills using open geospatial tools and for mapping. The online webinars are sessions that are online on YouTube that any student around the world can access to build their skills. And finally, training of the trainers. So when YouthMappers, when fieldwork happens, when fellowships happen, let's say you have 10 students who are learning the skills. They're then encouraged to go back to their chapter, those 10 chapters, and teach those students in their chapter about the skills that they learned. And then you have 100 other students who have now learned about open geospatial tools, about fieldwork, about soft skills that they can use in their communities and that they can use to build their professional skill set. And additionally, through the fellowship program, this is largely encouraging peer-to-peer mentorship. So with the leadership fellows, they come together, they learn from the YouthMappers steering committee members, professors who are teaching tools, and then they can go back to their communities and share about what they have learned. With the regional ambassador structure, I think within the open geospatial community, within STEM largely, English is the majority language. But with regional ambassadors, they're able to take the skills that they've learned and go back to their regions and teach in the native language of the area that they're in. So that's a really strong way that YouthMappers is encouraging overcoming language barriers and encouraging more access to geospatial tools and to open data. And finally, through the fieldwork grants, this is for fieldwork, funding to do fieldwork activities, but it will allow students, let's say, if they're going into the communities and they need cellular data on their phones to use every door, they will have funding in order to have that cellular data, to use the cellular data. So these are some of the ways that YouthMappers isn't just encouraging building maps, but also building mappers to build those capacity skills. And I think these are 4 ways in which the open movement has been able to thrive. So by encouraging diversity, so over 45% of YouthMappers are women, and that's an impressive stat for a STEM community, for an open for a geospatial community. And we have lots of youth represented here today, right? So you can see that you're bringing in the youth, you're bringing in women, you're also bringing in individuals from low and middle income countries to be able to use this data, to be able to build their skills and share their stories through YouthMappers. And this is a project, Everywhere She Maps, which is specifically encouraging women using mapping data. Secondly, the peer-to-peer mentorship. So I've spoken about the Regional Ambassador Program, but I think, again, just to harness in on that point, that YouthMappers is encouraging a student who is a 3rd year, 4th year, to go and help the year 1, year 2 students to build their skills. And it's not someone, you're not going to your professor and thinking about, they're my mentor, I want to be the professor. YouthMappers are seeing students who have recently graduated, and now they're like, I want to be Laura Mugueja, I want to be Faye Andel, I want to be Maria Fernanda. So they're seeing representation of what they can access, who they can become through their peers, through their leaders, through the alumni. Thirdly, experiential learning opportunities. So students are able to take the skills that they're using in the classroom and to build on what they have learned, and then also to build soft skills. So an example of, well, this isn't a soft skill, but just writing, open mapping towards sustainable development goals. This was an open access book, and almost every chapter had YouthMappers students who are writing the chapters. YouthMappers is encouraging students that they don't have to have a PhD to be able to tell their story or to be able to tell about the research they're doing. They can write about it and publish it now, and that can build their curriculum vitae for in the future in further academia. And they also have this opportunity informally through writing a blog and basically telling their stories and being able to use the tools, fieldwork, and then they're able to go and share about it. And finally, global citizenship. So the network, 81, where the YouthMappers network is in 81 countries, and that allows students to be able to connect, to do a mapathon from Colombia, and then they're collaborating with a chapter in Bangladesh. So they're gaining this global awareness, this global citizenship, and they're also focusing on social issues that are close to their heart, that are local issues that they are passionate about, and sharing about those globally. And now I'm gonna pass it to Adele to speak more about the geospatial ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks, Dara. So back to the maps a little bit more. So I wanted to share this statistic, which our YouthMappers team recently calculated, and it is that over 67 million people around the world are covered by the improved open geo data that YouthMappers students have generated through their mapping campaigns and projects. That's a big number, and just to tell you how we calculated it, feel free to come up to me afterward if you want more details, but we took the areas covered by the different mapping campaigns from the various tasking managers and then overlaid the areas with population data, and were able to extract the number of people contained within those mapping project areas. So it is an estimate, but in addition to this, which is so this is a visualization of OSM features edited over time, starting from 2015, and the colors correspond to the different continents. So you can see the growth of Latin America and the Caribbean over time, but the biggest continents are Africa and Asia still. Within this overall statistics, there's also the fact that YouthMappers have edited or contributed over 26 million buildings or edited buildings to OpenStreetMap, as well as 1.8 million road segments and 300,000 points of interest on OpenStreetMap. And because the students are frequently editing their own communities, they're enriching the geospatial data for where they live, and that is essentially a digital public good that can then feed into location-based services such as navigation apps. And we'd also like to highlight the YouthMappers Validation Hub. So with all those millions of edits, you might be thinking, how do we ensure that the quality of the edits is sufficient? Because the OSM community does have pretty strict guidelines regarding best practices for contributing edits to the global database that is OSM. And recognizing this, YouthMappers has really committed to ensuring data quality for those edits to OSM. And one way we do this is through the YouthMappers Validation Hub. This is a team of students and faculty based at the George Washington University in the US, and they work to validate the mapping campaigns and projects that are run by YouthMappers chapters and contributed to around the world. And they also host online trainings to teach students in other regions how to validate. And one initiative that I've been working on in collaboration with the Validation Hub is to not only provide data quality feedback at the end of the mapping during the validation stage, but also throughout the mapping process. And so what we've been piloting for the past, well, I guess it's not really a pilot anymore. We've been doing it for a couple years, and we match up every YouthMappers project on the HOT or Teach OSM tasking manager with a student at the validation hub who then monitors the edit quality in real time and creates custom learning resources for the chapters, identifying the common errors and how to fix them. And we try as much as possible to provide these learning resources in the local language. Also, at this point, I just wanted to give a shout out to HOT. I don't know if anyone in the room is from HOT, but we work with their tools very regularly, and we really appreciate all of the collaborations that we've had with them. And then finally, I'm going to give another shout out to DevSeed for collaborating with us on this product called OSM Teams. I'll be brief about this, but Jennings Anderson in the audience has been our lead on the YouthMappers side for this, so feel free to ask him questions afterward. So this is a platform where we're able to track YouthMappers chapters and the OSM usernames associated with students in each YouthMappers chapter, which is a big deal because before this, we were only tracking YouthMappers in terms of the use of the hashtag YouthMappers in the OSM change set comments. But with this approach, now that we can invite students to join their chapter's team, we can monitor when they start mapping, how long they're actively mapping. We can monitor, do they continue mapping after graduating from their university? And so we can have a more detailed glimpse into OSM retention rates. And from some preliminary studies within the OpenGeo community, we have seen that YouthMappers tends to have a higher mapping retention rate compared to other similar open mapping groups. So this, we're also working hopefully to expand the functionality of this tool a little bit to allow the students to visualize some of their edits. This was a request that came from the students themselves, and now we're hoping to work with the existing OSM platform. I don't know if anyone works with that, but it's like a edit visualization tool. So we want to make sure that we're giving students tools that they will actually use.
Thanks, Adele. So now we're going to wrap it up with YouthMappers' lived experiences, and what better way to learn about that than hearing directly from YouthMappers, not hearing, just their quotes. So this is a quote from Maria Fernanda, our co-author, and she's really explaining how YouthMappers opened her eyes to open data and a free software environment. I see several people reading, so I'll give it a second. So this is a powerful story of how YouthMappers is introducing students to these open tools. And next is a story from, quote from Tommy Charles in Sierra Leone, and he's explaining how the skills he's learned in YouthMappers has allowed him to build for his career in geoscience for his professional life. And I also meant to say that this is a sneak peek to our book chapter, because we have featured these students and more, their stories within the book chapter. And finally, this is a quote from Fayandel and in the Philippines, and she's speaking to how YouthMappers has given her the opportunity to be a leader. She is really a champion within YouthMappers and within the open geospatial community, and she's been able to build those skills and leadership and really find even a higher purpose through that. So finally, you have learned about YouthMappers as far as the ecosystem, case studies, what the pillars, the structure of community building, the tools, and the mapping that students are doing. So now you may ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do to support YouthMappers, or what can I do to overall support university students? And I'm speaking to university professors, but also those you all in the open geospatial community. So first, mentor students. So this can be from being a chapter faculty advisor at a university. It can also be through one-on-one mentorship. So if you are working in an organization and you have an intern you're working with university students, mentor them, guide them through the tools that you're utilizing and help them to integrate into the open geospatial community. And finally, offer public trainings. So I imagine many of you led presentations here this week. Share those trainings with a chapter that's in your community. Share those trainings globally through the YouthMappers network, through an online webinar, or hopefully through the recordings, so that more students can access information that has been explained at this conference, and it can help them grow their capacity building. Next, give students opportunities. I've seen two great examples here at the conference where Vitor and Pedro they led presentations about the projects they're doing. The career professionals and their professors weren't the ones presenting. They got to have the opportunity to present, and that's incredibly important for them to build their soft skills, right? And to also be able to add that to their resume, that they were able to lead at an international conference as students. And secondly, for publishing, if you're working on authoring an article, if you're working on research, include students, cite them. Don't just have them as assistants or research assistants, but cite them in the work. In addition, if you're doing field work, if you're doing data collection, include university students in that process. And finally, share about scholarship opportunities. There was a travel grant here for FOSS4G, so share that with the students that you are working with, either as interns or at universities. Inform them of opportunities to be able to access conferences and other professional development opportunities. And finally, connect students to your network. So as professionals in the open geospatial community, you have many years of building a network, but students who are just entering this community do not have as large of a network. So that can be from sharing about job openings, that at conferences introduce them to your network. And finally, for co-authoring, if you're working on an article, or if you hear that someone is working on an article, tell students about that opportunity. We wouldn't have known about the ability to contribute to this open movement without a senior in HOT sharing about it. So I hope that you take from this presentation how you can build mappers. And finally, we just have a couple of minutes, but we will open that up to questions, and you can scan here our virtual business cards to access our LinkedIn. Next year, they will be publishing the book, so we'll share about that there. And I'll pass it to Adele to make sure I didn't miss anything.
No, that was perfect. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.